Now, this is the most adorable cover you'll ever see, and I found it at the Mattoon Library Book Fair. It is A Baby for the Sheriff by Mary Leo, and it says, and baby makes three. Veterinarian Coco Grant is used to animals being left on her doorstep. The last thing she expects to find there is an abandoned baby girl. As a temporary mommy, Coco can't resist the sweet, loving little girl charge. But there's also Coco's growing affection of the town's handsome and infuriating by-the-book sheriff. To help with the baby, Sheriff Jet Wilson is practically living with Coco, and the town gossips are in seventh heaven. It's only when the rumors start circulating about Lily's real father that Jet realizes that there's a lot more at stake than setting a few tongues wagging. Because not only is the lawman falling for the baby, he's falling for Coco even harder. So, let's read the first little thing here to get you guys into this book. But as you can tell, there's a lot of pages marked. Didn't he trust himself? Or maybe he didn't trust her. Jet was in a pickle, and he had no choice but to take Coco up on that sofa offer. Fine, he said aloud, and as he trudged back to the front door into the snow and the cold wind blasting in his face and his hands with bitter sting, he hated nights like this, nights when Mother Nature reminded him of her power and when memories of his childhood came crashing back. But most of all, he hated that the baby would now be a ward of the state, and he would be the one to hand her over. The irony was too real. Life sure could stink at times, he thought, but before he was able to ring the bell, Coco swung open the door and handed him that shot of scotch. Thanks, he said, stepping forward. I saw you through the window and figured as much, she said, her voice low and sultry, feet bare, pretty little toes painted bright pink. No doubt he was in for it now. Okay, now we go to the first paperclip. Okay, page 52. He stepped out of the goat pen to the dismay of both goats, slipped his gloves, and headed for the next room, and contained a refrigerator, a large bottle of warmer, and supplies. Not what you're thinking, he shouted back. She heard him open the lid and the bottle of the warmer. Idaho has rules about who can be a temporary guardian for the abandoned baby, and you aren't certified. I checked. She relaxed a bit. He's merely referring to some law that she knew very little about. And I suppose you are. He stepped back into the main room, holding a large bottle of warm milk in each hand. Large nipples cupped up the top of the bottles. By default, yes, but I also had to take a few classes. So we're going to move on. Next little paperclip. Page 71. Are we still on me? How about you? I've seen you with Lily and all your critters downstairs. You're amazing. And now you can tell me, you tell me, slow down, Donna. And now you tell me you can rope a steer while on horseback. What can't you do? Relationships. He shook his head. I can't believe that. You must have guys beating down your door. Everything was cooked to perfection. The waffle crispy on the outside and light as air on the inside. The bacon dry, the eggs perfectly perfect. Just one guy at the moment, and after last night, I don't know if he'll come knocking in again any time soon. His eyebrows crooked up slightly as if he was skeptical about something. He'll be back. I guarantee it. He's not going to let one little baby stand in his way. He strikes me as the kind of guy who always gets what he wants. Do I detect a little jealousy in that statement? I mean, isn't that the good of someone who wants to be mayor? Depends on who he has to step on to get there. So far, to my knowledge, he hasn't stepped on anyone. He may be good at hiding the bodies. She detected more than jealousy. She detected a disdain for Russ, her knight in shining armor. You don't like him very much, do you? He topped off his coffee, then added cream and a teaspoon of sugar. She couldn't remember the last time she saw anyone add real sugar to their beverage. The only reason she kept it around was occasionally she liked something to bake with, but that hadn't happened in months. Can't say that I do. Why not? He hesitated as if it was deciding how honest he wanted to be with his feelings. My own personal reasons, but hey, if he's your man, then who's to rain on your parade? I didn't know I was in a parade. Dating a prominent figure like Russ Knightley every time you go and he goes out that door, you probably get a following. She knew he was right, but still, sometimes, but maybe, she knew he was right, but still, sometimes, but maybe I like it. Don't you know? She hated that he tipped her up. No, yes, that's only temporary. Once he's elected, things will quiet down. He doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who does things in a quiet fashion. She suddenly didn't like where this conversation was going. Okay, enough about me and my relationship, which you obviously don't approve of. What about you and your relationships? I suppose you have women lining up at the jailhouse just dying for your attention? If they are, I haven't noticed. She liked how he suddenly tried to be coy, as if, are you secretly dating anyone? Why would it be a secret? She shrugged. You strike me as a private sort of guy. I am, but not that private. I just keep picking out the wrong girl. And what kind is that? The kind who can't seem to date one guy at a time? Oh, you mean like Danny Century. How'd you know about her? It's a small town. Everyone knew he had dated Danny, and that she dumped him for a rodeo rat. She wanted a steady guy, and that she wanted to put her down her roots. You should have asked her how deep. That girl wasn't about to stick around long enough to break through the topsoil. Jet chuckled as he took a bite of his eggs. Don't I know it? You have a way with words. Anybody ever tell you that? You're the first, but thanks. She took the last bite of her waffle, which was now swimming in maple syrup. We're going to move on to page 97. That had always been her problem when it came to men. She couldn't see them for what they really were. In the midst of being wooed by them, not that the sheriff was in any way wooing her. Or was he? Okay, page 101. The sheriff gets a letter, and the letter tells him who baby Lily, which was left at the Cocoa Veterinarian, who the father is. Lily is your daughter. I thought I could keep her and move on, but I met someone and I can't look after a baby anymore, which changes the whole dynamic of the story. We move to page, why did I mark this page? 105. Then come with us and then tell them for yourself, or are you too busy with Russ to think about Lily's needs, and all you want to do is pile everything on me? Jet knew what he had said was mean, but he hadn't been able to stop himself. That's not fair. I'm only reminding you of her needs. You can do anything you want with the information. And 107. That doesn't give you any rights, Dr. Grant. He couldn't bring himself to tell her the truth. If he did, it would be real. And he didn't know if he was ready for reality, that he was the father to Lily. Moving on. Next paperclip. My parents always taught me that all problems have solutions. You just have to dig deep enough to find them. He drank down his scotch, then looked her over, and his deep brown eyes appeared almost completely black in low lighting of her apartment. I can appreciate the sentiment, but what my upbringing serves as the perfect example of how that theory does not work. On the contrary, it's the perfect example of how it did work. Maybe not your ideal way of thinking, but you weren't homeless or starving. The solution was always to put you in foster care. See, that's where he's wondering and struggling with the whole idea of putting the baby in for adoption, which it's like she eventually sees the light and realizes that the soon-to-be elected mayor is not a good guy. No. And the sheriff is a damn good guy. But that's another story. We're going to get over here to page 117. He looked away. I'm the last person as she needs as a father. Lily deserves two parents who love her, who can raise her together. She should have a father who doesn't have a dangerous job and a mom who won't run out for another guy. She does, but for now, you're all she has, and after that DNA test comes in, she may not even have you, but for the next few days, I'm willing to give her all the love that I have, if you are. Willie. I hope I'm enticing you to read this book. Page 137. This thing with Jet sounds complicated, especially when you bring Russ into the equation. Everybody knows there's no love lost between those two men. Coco shivered. Russ has been nothing but a gentleman. Doo-doo-doo. Next paperclip. 173. Dr. Coco Grant, the woman dating Sheriff Jet Wilson. He let out a breath and he'd been holding. Are you sure about that? Been sure for a while now, that is, if you'll consider. But before she could say another uttered word, he leaned in, raked his hand through his hair, his thick hair, and kissed her hard, wanting to know how much he'd been wanting her since the first night they'd spent together on his bed, where he just held her and she slept. Ah! Of course, Lily picked that exact moment to start crying, or squirming, and let out one ear-shattering wail, and that scared some of the horses, and soon the entire barn was empty with angry whinnies that only grew louder with a crying baby. Let's pick this up later, Jet told her. Uh-huh, she whispered, as their hands were held, and she walked quickly back to the house. Next paperclip. As he came closer to Coco. Sure, I'll take care of Lily, but Jet, you need to know one thing. In that jail, I fell in love with you. And for what it's worth, I've had more fun with you in the last few days than I've had with any man in my entire life. If you want to throw all of that away because of some misguided notion that you don't belong anywhere, let me say that you belong with me and Lily. We want you to stay. Will he stay? Page 206. Maybe. He and Nash sat on their respective desks before Jet said another word. Dr. Grant deserves better than me. I'm not the kind of man who remains in one spot. Something always happens to mess it up. I don't want to get our hopes up. Heck, I don't want to get my hopes up. Every time I do, well, it just never works out. The deputy, Nash, says, he let out a slow breath. You're kidding me, right? Jet gazed at him. No, I'm not kidding. Nash sat back in his chair and stuck his feet up on the desk and slipped his hat over his face. Tell you what, when you've got something to say that makes sense, wake me up. 'Cause right now you're so full of nonsense. I'm spilling my guts to you and you're going to sleep? To find out, did Russ and Coco Grant wind up together and the baby go over to foster care? Was the baby really the Sheriff Jet's? Or was the ex lying? Or did Coco and veterinarian Coco Grant end up married and raising little Lily? Only way to find out is to read this amazing book, which also gets an 8. I will see you in the future, for sure. I started my 2-pound weights last night, so I'm really excited about this. I'm hoping and praying that by Christmas I go up to 10-pound weights. That's a good thing. Grandpa wants to talk Christmas, and I'm nowhere in the mood to talk Christmas. I've not been in the mood to talk Christmas. This is not going to be one of the best Christmases ever. So much loss in one year. I can't be positive. I can just survive it. I want to wish everyone the best. Nothing less. I'll probably do one more little video without the glasses because girls with glasses rarely get second glances. See you in a few minutes.